Hello everyone and welcome back to another video of Drinkard Brews. I'm glad you're here, and who else is glad you're here? None other than Atog himself. A couple things that are no secret to anyone is that I like for R40 decks to be uniquely available to R40, and another thing is that I enjoy Atog. Atog was the first deck archetype to get me a championship in the Facebook Revised 40 League, and so this month, as people are playing various tribal lists, I wanted to see what I could do with Atog Tribal. So the only creatures in the deck are going to be 5 Atogs. This one, the flagship Atog, is the one given to me by the Northern Paladins for winning that league that I told you about before. So they gave me this sweet stamp. But look at him, he's a good boy. Glad to be here. So I've been asking in all my videos, what is the payoff for these creature tribes? The payoff for playing Atog is going to be massive amounts of damage in combat. So hopefully we can get a string of artifacts together, attack with some Atogs, and sacrifice the artifacts to the Atog that is unblocked, dealing maybe 9, 11, 13 damage to the opponent. One thing is, some people ask, what's the right number of artifacts to play per Atog? And this isn't like playing Force of Will and other formats where all of the Atogs need to be fed. Instead, you just need to feed one on a critical turn. So start off with 5 of those. And then what is the food for the Atog? Well, this deck is going to win a lot of games from curving out Black Vice into Ankh of Mishra. If you play a Black Vice turn 1 when you're on the play, then most of the times it's going to be a lightning bolt to the opponent. And then a lot of times it's best just to sit back and not do anything at all. But let the opponent get stuck on cards. If you play out your Atog turn 2, then you're likely to be unlocking your opponent's ability to play something like Paralyze, Swords to Plowshares, Unsummon, Lightning Bolt, etc., and get the cards down from their hand. So a lot of times you play Black Vice turn 1 and sit back and relax. Then once the opponent finally wriggles out of the Vice, then you can play Atog and start to apply pressure in other ways to the opponent. Some people have recommended that I play Rack instead of Black Vice, but I prefer Black Vice because Atog and the Rack are really awkward together. If the Rack is dealing damage to the opponent, then it's best to leave it be and not make Atog more powerful with it. And at the same time, this deck doesn't have any cards like Disrupting Scepter or Hypnotic Spectre or Mind Twist to make the opponent have a more difficult time of playing around the Rack. Anyway, so you play Black Vice turn 1, Ankh of Mishra turn 2, and these cards create such a pinch together because the opponent is going to be punished if they play cards and punished if they don't play cards. So that's really where this deck wants to be. One could argue that it is less of an Atog deck and more of a Black Vice Ankh of Mishra deck, or a curve out sort of sly aggro. This deck first came to me when I was playing Revised 40, and I realized after over 25 years of Revised existence that Ironclaw Orcs was not in the format. But I wanted to play a Paul Sly aggro list that curves out, and Atog was the only 2-drop that I had to work with. So that's how this came to be. Alright, so we have our Atog, our primary pieces of Atog food there. Once they are less relevant, you can use them as little mutagenic growths for your Atog. Okay, the deck follows on with some burn. We have lightning bolts. So here's another spoil of victory that I've won playing Revised 40 Leagues. You can tell I like playing red. We play 3 lightning bolts, of course, 2 disintegrates, and 3 fireballs. These will easily close out the last points of damage after Black Vice and Ankh of Mishra have done their work. Then we have 2 mana accelerants in Soul Ring and Mana Vault. Mana Vault is very good with Atog because if you're unable to untap it, you can just use it to feed Atog, make him more powerful, and not suffer the damage. But Mana Vault allows for us to have more powerful disintegrates and fireballs. It lets us play around the opponent's power sinks, or it lets us play crazy turn 1s like Black Vice and Ankh of Mishra together. Some of my turn 3 wins have been on the back of a turn 1 Soul Ring and double Black Vice, or turn 1 Mana Vault and Black Vice and Ankh of Mishra. Those are very powerful starts. So this is the base of what I would typically play in a mono red Atog list, except I would probably play 3 or 4 Atogs if I weren't doing a specifically tribal brew. And now things get a little more spicy. Typically you would have Juggernauts in the uncommon slot. I've also enjoyed Dragon Whelps instead of Juggernauts. I feel like Dragon Whelps are more reliable with the 5 damage per turn than Juggernaut is, because they have evasion, and also you're not often using Juggernaut to feed Atog anyway, so changing the artifact count doesn't matter. But this is January 2023 and we're playing tribal only, and so I've omitted all the creatures and playing Glasses of Urza instead. So at worst they add 2 power to Atog's attack, but at best they give us information on the opponent's hand and let us know when it's safe to go all out with our Atog, or to spend a lot of mana on a fireball or disintegrate and not worry about power sink, etc. Finally, we have one more rare slot. The Ankhs and the Mana Vault are in there, and so lastly, of course, we're going to play Wheel of Fortune. What a great card for Revised 40. There's never been a time where it's cast against me and I think, oh, this is a drag. Instead, everybody has fun when Wheel is played in this format, and for this deck specifically, it resets your Black Vices, helping them cause damage to the opponent again, and it draws you into other Black Vices, so you can often deal 6 damage to the opponent on a turn after Wheel of Fortune is resolved. And then it also lets you get lightning bolts with the 7 cards that you draw, and it lets you flood the board with artifacts that can feed an Atog. And you think maybe Wheel of Fortune draws them into removal for the Atog as well? Well, we have Glasses of Urza to let us know if that's the case. So within a few cards, the 2 Atogs probably for another Expel and maybe a Shatter, or Red Elemental Blast, and the Glasses of Urza for Juggernauts or Dragon Whelps. This is the spiky version of Atog that I would play in a league. Let's see, we have 10 commons in the deck, so that leaves us with 15 mountains. To round out the mana base, 15 is a good number to total 17 mana sources with the Mana Vault and Soul Ring. 17 is what most competitive limited players would use in their draft decks. So I typically aim for that with most of my builds, especially builds that have Expels and benefit from late game excess amounts of mana. So this deck checks a couple boxes for me. One is it has unbeatable starts. Black Vice and Ankh of Mishra are very hard to beat for many decks. 2, it has ways to take advantage of too much mana. There are some aggro decks in the format like Merfolk or mono white aggro that simply can't take advantage of drawing too many lands. But mana flood is not as big of an issue with this deck because of all the X spells. And there's a broken element to the deck, how Atog is just simply unmatched as a creature in some situations. You can use your spells to clear the way for him and get in through for just colossal amounts of damage that doesn't exist in other decks in this format. So there's Mono Red Atog Tribal for you, and I hope you enjoyed the deck tech and some reasons for the cards. I look forward again to providing more content for you, and hope you come back and come to see it. All right, thanks everybody. Good luck, have fun, goodbye.